I never imagined that love could make me disappear gradually, like ink dissolving in water, until nothing remained of me but a pale shadow of what I used to be. On the night I realized I had become a stranger to myself, sitting at a table filled with laughter, with a shattered heart and a forced smile on my face, I understood there was something far more dangerous than loneliness. It was being next to someone, and still feeling completely alone. It was being loved for who you pretended to be, and ignored for who you really were. Before I continue this story, I need to ask you something from the bottom of my heart. If you've ever felt too small, if you've ever erased yourself trying to be loved, if you've ever changed who you were to fit into someone's expectations who promised to love you just as you are, please hit that like button now and subscribe to this channel. Turn on the notification bell too, because I promise I'll share every detail of this journey, every moment of pain and every discovery that brought me back to myself. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you ever loved someone who made you doubt your own worth? I need to know, because this isn't just my story. It's a conversation between friends, a virtual embrace for all of us who need to remember we're enough. We always were, exactly as we are. My name is Camila. I'm 28 years old, and for 3 years of my life, I believed I had found the love that would finally complete me. Looking back now, I can see with crystal clarity how wrong I was. Not because he was a monster. Actually, it would be easier if he were, but he was subtle, kind on the surface, the type of person who destroys you with smiles and criticism disguised as care, who makes you question your own sanity while telling you he loves you. But let's start from the beginning, because every story of loss begins with a moment when you thought you were gaining everything. I met Rafael at a friend's party on a hot summer night in São Paulo. I was 25 and had just gotten out of a relationship that left me tired and skeptical about love. I wasn't looking for anyone. In fact, I almost didn't go to the party. But my best friend, Julia, insisted so much that I finally gave in, dressing in a simple sundress and dragging myself to a house full of people I didn't know. It was there, near the drinks table, that our eyes met for the first time. Rafael was handsome in that common but attractive way. Dark, well-cut hair, brown eyes that seemed genuinely interested when you spoke, an easy smile that made you feel he had nowhere to be except exactly there, talking to you. "You look as bored as I am," were his first words to me, accompanied by a conspiratorial smile. I laughed, surprised by the honesty. That obvious? Only to those paying attention. He extended his hand. "Rafael, and before you ask, yes, I'm here because my friend threatened me with death if I didn't come. Apparently, working late isn't a valid excuse. Camila, and I'm here because my best friend used emotional blackmail. So we're both social hostages." He grabbed 2 beers from the table and offered me one. "Want to be a hostage with me? At least that way the night becomes less painful." And that's how it began. We talked for hours at that party, isolated in a corner of the garden while people danced and shouted around us. He told me about his work as an architect, about how he grew up in a big, noisy family in the interior of Minas Gerais, about his passion for photographing old buildings. I talked about my work as a graphic designer, about my small, quiet family, about how I'd loved drawing since childhood. "You have a unique way of speaking," he said at one point, his eyes fixed on mine in a way that made my stomach flip. "It's like each word is chosen carefully, but at the same time you're so spontaneous. It's enchanting." I felt my face heat. It had been so long since someone had paid real attention to me, to the small things that made me be me, that compliment sounded like water in the desert. When the party ended and we exchanged numbers, I floated home with a feeling I had forgotten existed. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, I had found someone who truly saw me. The first few months were a dream. Rafael was attentive in a way that seemed perfect. He sent good morning messages every day, always with some comment showing he was really thinking of me, not just a generic good morning, but things like, "Good morning, artist. I dreamed you were painting the sky purple. How's your morning?" He remembered my favorite coffees, cappuccino with cinnamon, no sugar. He'd show up at my work sometimes just to take me to lunch. He planned dates that seemed straight out of romantic movies, picnics in Ibirapuera Park at sunset, nights watching old films cuddled on his couch, walks along Paulista Avenue on Sunday mornings when the city was still waking up. "I've never met anyone like you," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "You're special, Camila, different from all the others." And I believed it. God, how I believed it. Because after years of feeling ordinary, invisible, not enough, someone was telling me I was special. Someone was choosing me. We moved to talking about us naturally, as if we'd always been a couple. We dreamed together. A small house, maybe on some quiet beach on the North Coast, adopting a stray dog, traveling through South America, building a life full of art, architecture, love. "You'll draw," he'd say, tracing imaginary patterns on my arm while we lay in his bed on a Sunday morning. "And I'll photograph, and we'll create beautiful things together." It was exactly the kind of future I'd always wanted, but never thought I deserved. And Raphael was offering it to me on a silver platter, wrapped in whispered promises and soft kisses. I should have paid more attention to the small signs. I should have noticed when he started making jokes about my clothes. I should have recognized the red flags when he started interrupting me mid-story. I should have heard that small voice in the back of my mind whispering that something was wrong. But when you're in love, when you finally feel chosen, you ignore the signs. You make concessions. You convince yourself you're being too sensitive, too dramatic, too demanding. The change was gradual, so subtle I barely noticed it was happening until it was too late. It started with seemingly innocent comments. "You're going out in that outfit? It's just a bit too flashy for a casual dinner, don't you think?" Or, "That dress is beautiful, but maybe it's not the most flattering for your body type." At first, I took it as a joke. I laughed. I even thanked him. After all, he was helping me dress better, right? He had good taste. He knew about these things. Slowly, I started dressing more conservatively. More neutral colors. Less makeup. Fewer accessories. Less me. Then came the comments about my personality. "You talk a lot when you're excited. It's cute, but sometimes it can be a bit much. People might find it over the top." Or, "You need to stop being so sensitive. Not everything is a big drama, Camila." I started policing myself. I spoke less in groups. I laughed more quietly. I controlled my reactions. I became an edited, filtered, diminished version of myself. "It's just temporary," I told myself. "I'm learning to be a better person. I'm growing." But I wasn't growing. I was shrinking. My friends started to notice. Julia pulled me aside after a group dinner where I had stayed practically silent all night. "Cammy, what's happening with you?" she asked, genuine concern stamped on her face. "You don't seem... You? Is everything okay with Raphael?" "Everything's great," I lied automatically. "I'm just tired from work. You used to light up any room you entered. Now it's like you're trying to disappear." Her words hit me, but I immediately pushed them away. Julia didn't understand. She didn't understand what it was like to finally be loved, to finally have someone who cared enough to help me be better. But deep down, in a part of me I was working hard to silence, I knew she was right. The turning point came in a way I never imagined. It was the birthday of one of Raphael's best friends, an elaborate party at an elegant apartment in Pinheiros. I had spent hours getting ready, carefully choosing a simple black dress I knew Raphael would approve of, doing my makeup subtly, making sure every strand of hair was in place. I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted his friends to like me. I wanted to prove I was good enough to be by his side. The night started well. Raphael introduced me to some people, kept his arm around my waist, included me in conversations. I felt seen, valued, part of something. After dinner, we were all sitting in the living room, a dozen people scattered on sofas and chairs. The atmosphere relaxed with wine and laughter flowing freely. Someone started sharing funny relationship stories, and the conversation naturally turned into a session of sharing embarrassing moments. That's when Raphael decided to contribute. "Oh, I have a good one," he said, and even before he started, something in his tone made my stomach tighten. When Camila and I started dating, she was so insecure that she'd call me like 5 times a day just to make sure I still liked her. Once, she literally cried because I took 3 hours to respond to a message. The room laughed. That kind of collective, understanding laughter from people who think they're hearing a cute, harmless anecdote. But for me, it was like taking a punch to the stomach. That wasn't a funny story. It was something I had shared with him on a vulnerable night, when I opened my heart about my insecurities. about my fear of abandonment that came from a father who left when I was a child. It was something intimate, painful, that I trusted him with thinking it was safe, and he was using it as entertainment. And the best part, he continued, apparently oblivious to how my face had gotten hot, how my hands started trembling, is that she really thought I was going to break up with her over something so silly, as if I were that superficial. More laughter. Someone commented that I was adorable. Another person said Raphael was lucky to have someone so dedicated. I smiled. I even laughed. Because that's what you did, right? When your boyfriend turns you into a joke in front of his friends, you laugh along. You pretend it doesn't hurt. You perform normalcy even when you're bleeding inside. Raphael pulled me closer and kissed the top of my head, a gesture that to everyone else seemed affectionate, but to me felt proprietary, condescending. She's grown since then, he said to the group, as if talking about a child who finally learned to tie their shoes. She's much more mature now. The conversation moved on. Other people shared other stories. More wine was served. The party continued. But I had stopped. Right there, on that couch, surrounded by laughter and animated conversations, something inside me silently shattered. For the first time in months, I truly saw myself, and what I saw horrified me. Who was this woman sitting quietly in the corner, wearing clothes she wouldn't have chosen, laughing at jokes about her own insecurities, small and invisible except when being used as entertainment? Where was the Camila who used to wear colorful dresses and laugh loudly? The Camila who told stories with her hands, who wasn't afraid to cry at sad movies, who didn't apologize for feeling deeply. Where had I gone? I stayed the rest of the night on autopilot. I smiled at the right moments. I nodded at appropriate conversations. I held Raphael's hand when we said goodbye to the hosts. In the Uber ride home, Raphael was animated. It was a great night, wasn't it? I think my friends really liked you. Yes, I managed to say, my voice coming out strange and distant even to my own ears. You're quiet. Everything okay? Just tired. He accepted that easily, returning to his phone, already moving on to the next thing. But I wasn't tired. I was waking up, painfully, agonizingly waking up. When I got home, to my own apartment, which I had kept even after starting to spend most nights at his place, I didn't turn on the lights. I just stood in the middle of the living room for a moment. I looked around at this life I had built, the paintings on the walls, the thriving plants, the books stacked on surfaces, the colorful dresses visible through the bedroom door. I remembered the woman I was 3 years ago, small, scared, disappearing, convinced I had to be less to be loved. And I looked at the woman I am now, big, confident, vibrant, knowing I have to be more myself, to be truly loved. The journey between these two women wasn't easy. It was in many ways the hardest thing I've ever done, because rebuilding yourself after spending years dismantling yourself piece by piece requires courage you don't know you have until you need it. I remember nights crying on the bathroom floor, convinced I'd never feel whole again. I remember the first therapy session where I admitted aloud that I had completely lost myself. I remember the first time I went out alone and felt powerful instead of pathetic. I remember the first time I wore my yellow dress again and didn't care who looked. Each of those moments was a brick in rebuilding myself. And now, looking at this foundation I've built, I realize something profound. I'm not the same woman I was before Raphael. I didn't go back to who I was before. I evolved into something stronger, wiser, more completely myself than I ever was. The scars from that experience haven't disappeared. I still have moments of doubt. I still have days where old insecurities emerge. I still catch myself sometimes censoring myself before remembering I don't need to do that anymore. But those scars don't define me. They're part of my story, not the whole story. And each one taught me something vital about my own worth, my own strength, my own capacity to survive the impossible. The following morning, Sunday, I wake up early and decide to do something I've been avoiding. I sit at my small office, open my laptop, and start writing. I write about everything. About meeting Raphael, about slowly disappearing, about the night at the dinner when something broke, about the dark weeks of depending, about starting therapy, about rebuilding piece by piece. about learning to love myself again. I write for hours, tears streaming down my face, hands flying over the keyboard. It's not pretty. It's not edited. It's raw and honest and painfully vulnerable. When I finish, I read what I wrote. It's my story. All of it. Nothing hidden, nothing softened, nothing censored. And then I do something that terrifies and empowers me simultaneously. I create a blog post. I publish my story, not anonymously, with my name, my photo, my truth. The first hour after publishing, I'm obsessed refreshing, checking if anyone saw, read, commented. Part of me wants to delete it immediately, hide again, protect that vulnerability. But I keep it online. Slowly, comments start appearing. First from friends. Julia writing, "So proud of you," with heart emojis. Then acquaintances. Then strangers. Women sharing their own stories, thanking me for being vulnerable, saying they recognize themselves in my journey, saying my story gave them courage to examine their own relationships, their own lives, their own losses of themselves. One comment particularly touches me deeply. I'm 22 years old, and I'm in a relationship for 3 years that looks exactly like what you described. My boyfriend subtly criticizing, making me feel I need to change to be good enough. I thought it was normal. I thought it was love. Reading your story made me realize, this isn't love. This is control. Thank you for sharing. You may have saved my life. I read that comment 3 times, tears blurring my vision. Because if my pain, my journey, my vulnerability can help even one person recognize themselves before losing themselves completely, then it was worth sharing. The post starts being shared. First dozens of shares, then hundreds, 1,000, more. My phone explodes with messages. Some friends I had lost touch with contact me, some admitting they went through something similar, others just saying they always saw me as strong and are happy to see I found my way back to myself. Lucas calls me. "I saw your post. Camila, I'm speechless. It's so brave, so honest, so you. I'm terrified, I admit. I put everything out there. And look at how many people you're helping. Look at how many women are sharing their own stories in the comments. You created a safe space for conversation about something many people go through but are afraid to talk about." He's right. The comments section has transformed into an impromptu community of women, and some men, sharing their experiences with relationships where they lost themselves, stories of constant criticism, of subtle control, of slow erasure of the self, and interwoven among the stories of pain are stories of rebirth, of leaving, of rebuilding, of rediscovering who they are when not performing to please someone. It's beautiful and devastating simultaneously. 3 days after publishing the post, I receive an email. It's from a small publishing house specializing in memoirs and nonfiction. They want to know if I'd consider expanding my blog post into a complete book. A book about my journey, my pain, my rebirth. My first instinct is to say no. Who do I think I am to write a book? Who would care about my story? But then I remember, hundreds of women already cared. Hundreds of women already said my story helped them, touched them, gave them courage. So I respond yes. Yes, I'll write the book. Yes, I'll expand my story. Yes, I'll be vulnerable on an even larger scale. Because I realized something in the last 3 years. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's ultimate strength. It takes deep courage to show your wounds, your scars, your failures. But in doing so, you create permission for others to do the same. Spending the next 6 months writing the book is therapeutic and challenging. I have to revisit moments I'd rather forget. I have to sit with emotions I buried. I have to articulate lessons I learned but never fully processed. Dr. Marina, my therapist, helps me through the process. Writing can be a powerful form of healing, she says. You're not just telling your story. You're reclaiming it. You're saying, this happened to me, but it doesn't define me. She's right. With each chapter I write, I feel something releasing, as if I'm finally putting that part of my life in a box, not to forget, but to honor it for what it taught me, and then gently let it go. Lucas is incredibly supportive throughout the process. On nights when I'm stuck or emotionally exhausted from reliving difficult memories, he shows up with my favorite dinner and simply sits with me, not trying to fix, not trying to give advice, just being present. You're the strongest person I know, he tells me on one of those nights. I don't feel strong. I feel like a mess, writing about mess. Strength isn't about never being a mess. It's about being a mess and still showing up anyway. When I finish the manuscript, I read it from beginning to end in one sitting. It's my life, all of it. The highs and lows, the loss and rediscovery, the pain and growth. It's imperfect, like me, like all of us, and it's exactly as it should be. The book is published 8 months later. It has a simple title, Learning to Love Myself, A Journey of Loss and Rediscovery of Self. The cover features one of my abstract paintings, that one with deep blues and bursts of gold. Visual representation of darkness finding light. Launch week is surreal. The book appears in bookstores. People I don't know buy it, read it, share it. I do some interviews for podcasts and blogs about self-care and emotional health. In one of those interviews, the interviewer asks me, if you could go back and talk to the Camila from 3 years ago, the one sitting on the bathroom floor thinking she'd never feel whole again, what would you tell her? I think carefully. I'd say, it's okay not to be okay right now. It's okay to feel like you've completely fallen apart, because sometimes we have to break to rebuild stronger. And I'd say she's more resilient than she knows, more valuable than she believes, and more loved than she can see in this moment, not just by others, but eventually, powerfully, by herself. After the podcast episode, I receive an email. It's from a woman named Sophia. Dear Camila, she writes, I just finished your book and I'm crying as I write this. I'm 35 years old, and I've spent the last 10 in a marriage where I slowly became invisible. Your book made me realize I don't have to stay, that I deserve more, that I can choose myself. Today I took the first step. I talked to a lawyer. I'm terrified, but also, for the first time in years, hopeful. Thank you for sharing your story. You saved my life. I read her email through tears. This is why. This is why I shared, why I was vulnerable, why I opened every wound so others could see that scars can heal. I respond, Sophia, I'm so proud of you. The first step is always the hardest. Be gentle with yourself during this process. And remember, you're not alone. You never were. The book becomes unexpectedly popular. Not a #1 bestseller, but it does well. Well enough for a second printing. Well enough for translation proposals in other languages. Well enough to make a difference. I start being invited to speak at events. First small ones, book clubs, support groups, then larger, conferences about mental health, corporate events about emotional well-being. At a university talk, a young woman raises her hand during Q&A. How did you know? She asks, voice trembling slightly. It was time to leave? How did you distinguish between working through normal relationship problems versus recognizing the relationship was harmful? It's a question I get frequently, and I understand why. The line can seem blurred when you're in it. There's a difference, I respond carefully, between a challenging relationship that helps you grow and one that makes you shrink. In a healthy relationship, both people are growing. Both feel seen, heard, valued. Conflict is worked through together, not used as a weapon. In a harmful relationship, one person is always adapting, always trying to be enough, always feeling less. If you're constantly questioning your own worth, your own reality, your own identity, it's not about working through normal problems. It's about recognizing you deserve a partner who celebrates who you are, not one who demands you be someone else. The room is silent. I see heads nodding. I see tears in some eyes. I see recognition. After the talk, a line of people waits to speak with me. Each one shares a piece of their story. Each one thanks me for being vulnerable, for sharing, for creating space for difficult conversations. It's humbling and empowering simultaneously. 2 years after publishing the book, Lucas takes me for a weekend to the same beach where I went alone years ago. That first terrifying but crucial step in learning to enjoy my own company. We're walking on the sand at sunset, the water lapping at our feet, when he stops. Camila, he says, taking both my hands. Since the moment I met you, you've taught me about true courage. The courage to be completely yourself, to stand up after breaking, to transform pain into purpose. My heart races. I know what's about to come. I don't want to change anything about you. I want to be by your side while you continue becoming even truer versions of yourself. I want to share your life, not control it. I want to celebrate your triumphs and hold you through your challenges. I want to be your partner in every sense of that word. He kneels in the wet sand, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Will you marry me? Not because you need me, but because we choose each other. Every day, as we are. Tears stream down my face, but these are tears of joy, not pain, of choice, not fear. Yes, I say, pulling him up, kissing him through laughter and tears. Yes, I choose you, every day, as you are. We get married 6 months later in a small ceremony on the beach. It's nothing like the wedding I imagined years ago. It's better. It's real. It's us. I wear a dress I chose, not because someone would approve, but because it makes me feel beautiful. It's golden yellow, flowing in the wind. Absolutely perfect. Julia is my maid of honor. Dr. Marina is there, along with Donna Teresa and Lucas's entire expansive family. Friends who saw me at my worst and at my best. My small family who always supported me even when they didn't understand why I was struggling so much. My vows aren't traditional. Lucas, I begin, voice trembling but strong. You entered my life when I was learning to be alone, and instead of completing me, you showed me I was already complete. You didn't save me. You held me while I saved myself, and that's true love. I promise to never lose myself in you. Never erase myself to make you bigger. Never bend to fit into a mold I wasn't made for. Because I learned the hard way that I can't love someone completely until I love myself completely. I promise to show up as I am. Messy, emotional, creative, strong. I promise to communicate when I'm struggling, and trust you'll hold space for that. I promise to grow alongside you, not away from you. And I promise, always, always to choose myself first, because only then can I truly choose you. There isn't a dry eye. Lucas responds with his own vows, promising to love me exactly as I am, celebrate my strength, support my dreams, and never ask me to be someone I'm not. When we kiss as husband and wife, I feel something profound settle in my soul. Not completion through another person, but confirmation of what I already knew. I'm complete alone. I'm whole. I'm enough. And now I have a partner who sees that, celebrates that, honors that. Today, 5 years after that night at the dinner when something broke, I wake up in the home Lucas and I built together. It's small but full of light, walls covered with my paintings, plants everywhere, creative mess spread across surfaces. I have a new book coming out next month, a follow-up to the first, about building healthy life after trauma, about cultivating self-love, about recognizing your worth. I still do therapy, not because I'm broken, but because I'm committed to continuing to grow, process, evolve. I still have difficult days, moments where old insecurities emerge, times where I have to consciously remember my own worth. But the difference is that now I know how to bring myself back. I know how to anchor myself in who I am. I know that wavering isn't the same as failing. My nonprofit organization, started last year, offers free workshops for women about self-esteem, self-love, and recognizing harmful relationships. I teach women things I had to learn the hard way, that their worth isn't negotiable, that love shouldn't hurt, that they can choose themselves. Sophia, the woman who sent me that first email, now helps run the organization. After her own divorce and healing journey, she dedicated herself to helping other women find the strength she found. You changed my life, she told me when we met in person for the first time. No, I gently corrected. You changed your own life. I just held up a mirror. Sometimes I still think about Raphael. I wonder if he's well, if he learned anything, if he treats the next person better. I don't need to know the answers to those questions. They don't belong to me anymore. But mostly I don't think about him, because he was a chapter, not the whole book. He was a lesson, not a life sentence. He was a necessary breaking, not the end of the story. His story is that the woman he met, the woman he tried to erase, emerged stronger than she ever was. That the pain he inadvertently inflicted became a catalyst for transformation that changed not just my life, but the lives of countless other women too. There's poetic irony in that. This morning, as I drink coffee in bed with Lucas before starting the day, my phone vibrates. A message from a young woman I met at a workshop last month. Dear Camila, she writes, I followed your advice. I ended the relationship yesterday. I'm devastated but also hopeful. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. Thank you for showing me I can be enough alone. You saved my life. I show the message to Lucas, tears in my eyes. You're changing the world, he says softly. One woman at a time. No, they're saving themselves. I just show that it's possible, because that's the fundamental truth I learned. We don't save each other. We offer mirrors. We hold space. We share stories. And in doing so, we create possibility for each person to save themselves. I look around this life I've built, not despite the pain I went through, but in many ways because of it. A home full of love and creativity, work that matters, a partner who sees me, and most important, a relationship with myself that's solid, loving, unshakable. If I could go back and tell the Camila from 5 years ago that everything would be okay, better than okay, it would be incredible. I don't know if I would, because she needed that journey. She needed that pain to discover her strength. She needed to break to learn she could rebuild herself. She needed to lose herself to discover who she really was, under all the layers of expectations and external approvals. But if I could whisper one thing to her on that bathroom floor, it would be this: you're going to survive. And more than that, you're going to flourish. The woman you'll become on the other side of this pain is stronger, wiser, more completely yourself than you ever imagined possible. So cry now, feel now, break now, and then, when you're ready, rise, because you are so much more than this moment. Today I know that losing someone can be the first step to finding yourself again. The pain that once seemed like the end was, in fact, the turning point. I learned that no one has the power to take from you what's yours by right, your worth. And if you're reading this and recognize yourself, if you're in a relationship where you're shrinking, where you're questioning your reality, where you're losing pieces of yourself trying to be loved, I want you to know, you're going to get out of this too. It may take time, it may hurt, but one day you'll look in the mirror and see the strength that was always there. And on that day, you'll understand what took me 7 years to truly know. The love you were looking for out there was inside all along. You are enough. You always were. You always will be. Exactly as you are.